Right, there really isn't very long to go now until the start of the brand new F1 season. All gets underway in Bahrain this coming weekend. Loads to talk about after an eventful few days of testing in Sakir. And we've got Martin Brundle with us to go through all of it. Martin, lovely to see you. So you're flying tomorrow, the new season about to get underway. Do you still get that big sense of excitement and anticipation ahead of a new season?
Absolutely. I think it's year 40 for me in Formula One, yeah. And I'll get in the paddock and on the grid and think, I feel like I'm home. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Lot of energy. Yeah,
will Mercedes be looking forward to it? Because there seems to be still that uncertainty around them during testing. Are they once again got a season of catch-up ahead?
Well, we have to remember it was one test at a warm track, quite an aggressive asphalt there. What we call a rear-limited track in terms of the rear tyres take the most punishment. Any number of things that make it slightly specialised. So our reference point is the Bahrain test, and it did look as if it was Red Bull out front, Ferrari gamely chasing them, and then Mercedes scratching their head, not quite sure where they were at, a few issues, but not too far behind. So a bit like last year, actually, yeah, and I think they've got a bit of work to do to match the relentless pace of the Red Bull.
And talking about that work, in this period between testing, finishing and the first race weekend getting underway, how frenetic a period is that for the various teams?
Well, they'll look at all the data they collected, and the car's got 150 sensors on it and all sorts of bits and pieces they put on over and above that to collect the data, to see how to fly it along the ground, basically, aerodynamically, make the suspension work better, keep the tyres in better condition. They'll put all that together and hope they'll turn up with a better car come Friday.
And I think the general consensus was last season, in what was a hugely disappointing season for Mercedes, but in particular Lewis Hamilton, is just how well he handled, he internalised that disappointment. If it's another poor season for Mercedes, what might that mean for him in his future?
I think Lewis can race as long as he wants to. You know, drivers don't get smashed up these days. They don't get broken bones and their heads knocked around too much. Cars are much safer. They're physically in incredible shape, nutrition, hydration. They're looked after well. So I think they can race on at their peak. And I think Lewis has got as many more years in as he wants, in his career as he wants. But I think he'll handle it fine. You know, what else is there to do in life other than, you know, if you can drive one of the best Formula One cars in the world?
You still see that hunger in him?
Absolutely. Yeah. Both him and Alonso somehow, and this is one of the things that fascinates me about 2023, is you've got two of them left now, Alonso and Hamilton, against this army of youngsters coming in who want the glory and want the championships, and we'll see who comes out on top. Interestingly,
your colleague Ted Kravitz has backed Aston Martin to finish ahead of Mercedes in third. Can you see this happening?
No. No, that's too much to ask. I think that's too big a turnaround. And Mercedes, you know what? They got their car was pretty handy towards the end of last year. Don't forget George Russell won in Brazil. So I wouldn't. I think that's underplaying how strong Mercedes are as a team and that car can be.
It's been quite a few, and you'll have seen these rumours surrounding Sebastian Vettel and perhaps a surprise comeback for the opener in the absence of Lance Stroll, who's got that wrist problem. Can you see this happening? How seriously should we take those rumours?
I think their reserve driver, Drugovich, they put in, the F2 champion. They'll see how he goes. I think if they think Lance Stroll with his broken wrist is going to be out longer, they might consider can you imagine Alonso and Vettel in the same team?
That would be something, wouldn't it?
That would be feisty. But, you know, Seb's retired. You know, where's his mindset? Does he want to come back? Has anybody asked him, you know, do you fancy, going flat out through a corner at 200 miles an hour anymore?
Yeah, how physically possible is that? Because, you know, if you hadn't played football for a year and someone said, look, we've got a space going in the team, you couldn't just walk back into that team. You'd have to do all kinds of training. For an F1 driver, even a man of his talent, can he just stroll back into a team and get behind the steering wheel?
Right now, I think he'd be all right.
Yeah.
He'd be sore a day or two, you know, and he'd be gasping at the end of the race. But that would soon come back to him. A year from now, different story.
Let's turn our attention to Red Bull. Are we set for another year of Red Bull Verstappen dominance?
They're looking good. I mean, they've got this penalty where they're limited a little bit on their aerodynamic work, let's call it. I think if they turn up with a great car and they just have to tickle it through the year, they'll be absolutely fine. It won't impact on them too much. So right now, Red Bull, they're in the first garage as the champions. They feel good. The car was super reliable. And Verstappen just gets more experience, more relaxed, more easygoing, and he's got it all covered. And he's got so much talent that add that to Adrian Newey and the team at Red Bull, it'll take some beating.
Yeah, and that confidence that just grows with every season. Could he go even better then than 15 wins again?
Well, I hope not, for our sake.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to see Ferrari winning a lot more races and Mercedes coming in, and then I see a bit of a David and Goliath. Ocon won in an Alpine, for example. Gasly won, didn't he, a few years ago, and Ricciardo won Monza in a McLaren a little bit, out of expectations. So I don't like certainty.
Yeah. So can Ferrari close that gap? And to do so, what needs to be better this season?
The drivers need to stop making mistakes. The team needs to be better with its strategy and better reliability. They've been working hard on that. I'm not really sure that changing your team boss through the winter was a smart move right now, but that's what they've done. Personally, I'd have had Binotto and Vasseur in there because it's a huge job running Ferrari. 4 or 5 people were doing it when Schumacher was winning championships for them. So, yes, they can be better. Will they be good enough to beat Red Bull over a season? Difficult.
All of your F1 colleagues have been going through their pecking. You mentioned Ted Kravitz already. He's gone with McLaren to finish in 7th. David Croft, Anthony Davison also backing them to be a little bit underwhelming. What are you thinking? They're
struggling. I've been talking to people at the team. They didn't get the car where they thought it should be. It looked a bit of a handful to drive. It'll be very difficult for Lando to keep his chin up if he has another difficult season. They think they know what the problem is. So their first update will be very telling as to how their season's going to be. McLaren are definitely struggling and on their back foot.
And what are your thoughts on this opening weekend? I mean, last year's race, it'd be fair to say, eventful. What will this time bring?
Well, what do we say? It's only live once. We're all going down there to see the race. All the testing, they did 400 laps. Some of the drivers, it's incredible. They've done so much work, but all he needs is a little gremlin or a tap in the first corner or whatever. So it's very unpredictable. You would think it'll be Red Bulls with a couple of Ferraris and Mercedes chasing them, but that's why we love live sport, isn't it? You don't know.
It's the joy of live sport. Finally, Martin, surprise package in terms of a driver and a team. If you were going to pick one this season, who and which team would it be?
They say the Aston's really good, of course. You alluded to earlier on. I think Alonso will pick it up and drag it around even faster than it really ought to be going. And so I'd like to see. It wouldn't be great if Fernando could get a British Racing Green Aston Martin up into the fray somewhere. So at the moment, all the wise people in the paddock are saying the Aston is looking really strong on the longer runs. That's what matters.
Yeah.
One headline lap time, irrelevant. How's the car going 30, 40 laps into the race?
Great to see you. Have a terrific season. Safe flight tomorrow and look forward to the weekend. And by the way, you can see practice 1 of the first Grand Prix of the season from Bahrain live. Sky Sports F1 Friday from 11 a.m.